I met Jason the day after Halloween of this year, 2022. I was on Facebook and I received a mutual friend request. I could only see his profile picture, but had noticed he was friends with two of my girlfriends who I worked with. So I accepted his request. Moments after accepting, he started to PM me. He said his name was Jason and that he was 50 years old. That's all he said about himself before asking me where I was from, was I married, single, did I have kids, etc. I thought it was refreshing to have someone ask about me. While it might sound selfish, I've had a bad dating streak lately where I met a few guys in person for dates and they talked about themselves for eternity without even ever asking anything about me. I told him I was single, never married, and had no kids. I'm 38 years old, so we had a bit of an age gap, and I thought maybe that's why he was so different. He was older and listened and wanted to learn about me. He sent me 2 photos of himself other than his profile picture. He said he was a widow and that his wife had died from a car accident 10 years ago, and he's been single ever since. He said he had a daughter named Millie, and she was 12 years old. I admit I felt bad that his daughter didn't get a chance to grow up with her mother, through childhood and into her upcoming teenage years. Call me a softie, but it tugged at my heartstrings. He sent me a couple photos of his daughter and said she was away at a private boarding school in the UK until May of next year. That made me feel even worse because here is a girl without a mother, away from her father. And I asked how often that she gets to visit him, and he said it's been some months. Jason said he was originally from Germany, but had a home in Los Angeles. He said he worked for a private medical group which travels for the UN to war-torn countries to help victims of war. In fact, he said he was in Ukraine during the time we met online. He said he was an orthopedic doctor that specialized in infant and children care. That was all he spoke about himself. He started asking me about my favorite foods, favorite colors, music, books, and hobbies. Very social. He wanted to get to know me, and again I thought this was very refreshing. I asked how he knew my 2 friends, and he said through the medical field. And this was actually plausible because we all work for an insurance company dealing with medical billing. And so the 2 girlfriends he was friends with online, in fact, we've worked together for years in the medical billing field. I assumed they knew him through the office contracts. I live in Phoenix, and we deal with medical billing through Arizona, California, Nevada with our company. And it was not unusual for us to friend other medical professionals and have contact with others in the field, and yes, including some doctors. He asked if I had hangouts, to which I started rambling on about how I don't have time for bars or nightclubs or places to really hang out. He then sent me a link to Google Hangouts and said he meant if I had this app. I told him no, never used it. He asked me for my Gmail address so we can stay in touch. I didn't have Gmail and downloaded Hangouts. He said it wasn't on the site often and would rather be in touch on Hangouts as he travels a lot for work, and being overseas right now, the connection's not stable for social media, but Hangouts seems to always work. We started talking on Hangouts, and I admit it was amazing to chat to him as he kept asking about me. I told this man my whole life story from childhood to now. He asked why I never married, and I shared some very personal details of my life, abusive past relationships, and the reason why I never married. He said he would love to marry if he found the right woman. I told him I wasn't close to the idea of marriage, but not anxious to get married either. We started this online friendship that ended up having my head spinning. We would chat on Hangouts nearly every day, before and after work, late at night, mostly due to the time difference between us. He even video called me several times, but there was a delay in the video to his voice. He had a strong accent, which he told me was from growing up in Germany, but his parents were originally from Estonia, Lithuania, and he went to school in Spain. He was exciting. We talked more and more, and he introduced me to his daughter via email. He asked if I would be okay with emailing his daughter, to which I did. His daughter would write to me about her schoolwork, teachers, life in the boarding school. I kept things light and told her I'm her father's friend. She emailed me one day and told me that her daddy really liked me and wanted to be with me and asked if I loved her daddy. I was taken back by this and didn't answer her. Instead, I called Jason on Hangouts and we spoke. He confessed he really loved me, felt so many feelings for me. And I admit I felt something for him, but I was scared and cautious. I told him I have to think about things. He then told me he would like to come visit for Christmas, and his new contract would start in January, and he'd like to spend 2 weeks with me and his daughter. This was happening fast, and I told him to give me some time to think about it, maybe a few days. He said he only had this time off, and he wanted to spend it with me and his daughter at the same time. He said he would fly home and his daughter would fly, and they would meet together at the airport and then fly to me. I didn't tell my friends about this relationship because ethically we shouldn't mix people we date with who we might be involved in our business. And I thought he was a doctor who might have dealings with our insurance company. It's silly, I know, but I was being a little paranoid. I took a hard look at my life and really thought what I felt for him was real. It might be love, it might turn into love, and so I told Jason I'd love to meet him and his daughter. He was excited, so was I. He wrote his daughter and told her because she emailed me about how excited she was to meet me. She said since her daddy works so much they haven't had a real Christmas in years, and it pulled at my heart. I asked her what she wanted for Christmas. I wanted to make it special for her and for Jason. She told me she wanted peace and love and a mother to have that she never knew. I bawled and I felt so bad for her. I told her while I wasn't her mother, I would be a motherly figure if she ever needed anything. She told me she always wanted a phone, as it was hard to get on email at school all the time, and it would be a way that she could keep in touch with me and her daddy. Jason also called me, and he professed his love for me. He showed me a picture of a ring and asked if I liked it. He said he's never felt this way about any woman other than his wife, who died. My head was spinning, and this was all going so fast, but my heart overruled my common sense at the time. Chalk it up to being the holidays and the giving season. It was now Thanksgiving, and I sent him pictures of all the food we had. I went to my parents' house and mentioned Jason to them. They were happy for me, but told me as always to be careful. They wanted me to be happy but safe, and insisted that my brother join me at the airport to pick them up when they come to visit. I rolled my eyes. I remember feeling like I was being treated like a child. I just told my brother sure, and I let it go. Jason was shocked at all the photos of the food that we had, and his daughter also got the pictures, and she said the school never gave them good food, and the kids were mean to her. The next day I found myself at all the Black Friday sales buying stuff. I ended up going to get his daughter a new iPhone. I bought her new bedding as she would stay at my home, and bought all kinds of stuff, including some iTunes gift cards and game cards. Tons of stuff I thought she would like, because she mentioned she loves playing games. I bought Jason some clothing as he told me his sizes during our chats. Bought him some shoes, a jacket, his favorite cologne that he told me he loved. I also bought myself some new clothing. I did tell Jason that I got his daughter an iPhone, and he asked for a picture of it. I also told him about the iTunes cards I bought for her and some game cards that she could use with her new phone. He was so excited. He asked me if I could send him the iTunes and game gift cards and he could surprise his daughter with them, as his account was on hold until he returned to the States for safety reasons, and he wanted to give her an early surprise gift. I thought there was no harm in it, so I gave him the card numbers and information. He said he would email them to his daughter and tease her with them, saying there's a surprise that goes with the cards when she meets me. It was exciting for me. Jason sent me a copy of his daughter's flight itinerary, and we talked about meeting at the airport and what I would wear, how our first meeting would be. His daughter emailed me calling me Mommy, and would send me emails nearly every morning about how her daddy gave her some iTunes and game cards, and she asked what she was getting for Christmas and how she cried and cried. She asked me if it was a phone, and I spoiled the surprise and told her yes, it's a phone. She begged me to send it to her school, but I told her she could wait. She then said it would be better to have the phone while she travels, as she has no phone now. I admit it was a clever idea, and for her safety, and I thought maybe it would be best. I asked Jason, and he said it was a great idea. His daughter gave me the mailing address to the school mistress at the UK boarding school. I ended up mailing the phone through DHL Express to an address in Watford, UK. The package arrived and his daughter stopped emailing me. Jason said they're doing school exams. She's very busy and the exams are right before her winter break. Jason showed me photos of his suitcase packed. He said the war zone was bad and he couldn't wait to come home. 4 days before his daughter's flight, she was set to fly to the States, and his flight was set to meet her at the airport, and then they would fly together to my airport near my home. I urged him to have his daughter have the airline chaperone her, and he said they would, as she just had a 3-hour wait before his flight would arrive. We would speak day and night. I decorated my home for them, set up her bedroom, and had my entire house ready with tons of food 2 days before he was set to arrive. He told me he wanted to marry me, and I said yes. His daughter never emailed me before leaving, but Jason said she made her flight, and he was set to leave as there was bombing and problems here, and he wanted to leave it all behind and be with me, and thought about not signing his new contract. I told him we would talk about it when he was here. He wanted to retire. Jason confirmed for me that he was at the airport, and sent a photo of the airport he claimed to be at. I told him to call me when he arrived in the States and got through customs. His daughter also had my phone number. I never told my brother or family when they were coming. I didn't want them here with me. This was a private and emotional moment for me. Hours before they were set to arrive, I received a phone call from a man named Michael, who said he was the airport security in London. He said Jason had been detained for not having the correct passport information. I was in shock. Michael said I was the emergency contact in his phone, and he was being detained until Jason could pay the fine. He said the fine was $1,000. I wasn't sure what to say, and my mind went to his daughter being alone at the airport waiting on her father. Michael said if the fine was paid, Jason could be on the next flight. I asked him if I could talk to Jason, and he said no, he was being detained. He said I could wire the money to the Airport Security Administration manager if I wanted him to get on the next flight. Otherwise, he'll be held. I guess all I could think of was missing Christmas with them, and his poor daughter. I asked if I could call him back at this number, and he said yes, as it was a +49 country code number. I checked his daughter's ticket information and contacted the airline and let them know what was going on, that her father would be delayed. They put me on hold for a long time, and during this time that Michael person called me at least 8 times. The airline couldn't give me any information on the passenger, as it was a minor and there's privacy laws. But if there was a delay in her meeting her parent or guardian, the airline would help. I called Michael back and told him I could pay the fine and asked for the information on how to send it. He gave me the name of a woman who lived in London who is supposedly in charge of the airport administration and security. When I asked to talk to her, he said no, she's busy with other passengers. I ended up sending the money via a bank wire transfer. Gave Michael the confirmation number, and he stayed on the phone with me as I did the transfer online. He then hung up after I gave the details to him, and he confirmed the payment was transferred. I waited and waited to hear from Jason, and as time came to meet them, I called Jason, and he finally answered. He said he was still in London, but he was being detained for a baggage claim violation, and he was being held in customs. I was so upset thinking, where was his daughter? He said he didn't know, and customs wouldn't let him make contact with her, which I thought was strange. He called me, and he said he was being held prisoner at the airport now, and he needed $10,000 for the customs fine, as he didn't declare some items he brought back from his work. He said they made threats of keeping him in prison, and he started crying for his daughter, and then the phone hung up. I called him back several times before Michael called me. He was telling me that Jason had been arrested again and to pay the fine to the airport administration. I told him I don't have $10,000, and I told him I'd call the police in London, and hung up. I then got an email an hour later from his daughter saying she was mad at me for making her daddy be arrested, and she was all alone in New York airport. I called the airport and let them know in New York what was happening, and they took her information and would investigate. Michael called and called over and over and over. I didn't answer. My head was spinning, and I finally received a call from the New York Transit Authority asking for information and confirmation. They had no passenger by the daughter's name, and I argued with them. They asked me to explain again what happened, and after I did, they urged me to contact the police as they felt this might be a scam, as there's no girl by that name who's traveled. I tried to call Jason again, but no answer. Michael called again, asking if I'm sending the money, and if they don't, they'll lock Jason for life in prison and his daughter will be without her father. I hung up on Michael, and I got several emails from this so-called daughter. By this time, I'm angry and I'm questioning everything. I ended up calling my brother to tell him what happened. My brother started yelling at me and came over. He asked me to show him pictures of Jason and then called Michael back and accused him of being a scammer and demanded to talk to his supervisor. Michael hung up and Jason vanished from my social media as well as Hangouts. My brother told me it's a scam, and I didn't believe him at first. But then we went online and my brother Googled Jason's picture and showed me it's a Turkish doctor. It's all a lie. The photos were stolen. I spent the next week sick. I didn't go to work. I didn't do anything but feel like a fool. Christmas was ruined for me and I didn't even participate. When I returned to work, I asked my two girlfriends how they knew this Jason. Well, neither one of them knew him. They just friended him, and they friend all doctors and people who they assumed have worked with us through the insurance company. I accepted that I was scammed, but by who I don't know. I don't know who got the phone or the money or who the people were in the UK that I sent this stuff to. I received a few emails from the daughter saying her daddy was in prison and sick and begged me for the $10,000 and said her phone stopped working and she needed more iTunes cards. I felt stupid. I felt betrayed. I felt dumb. Since then, tons of doctors send me friend requests online and I occasionally get an email from the daughter. I ended up blocking them all, and now it's January and I'm pursued by scammers. While this just happened to me, I feel it carried on for years, but it was only a few short weeks of chaos. And we'd like to thank this lady for sharing her story. Sometimes romance scams happen very quickly, and a lot of people get caught up in the excitement of the holidays, and this was one of those instances. If you've encountered a scammer and you'd like to share your story, whether it be one where you lost money or a funny encounter or one where you just talked to a scammer and blocked, feel free to drop us an email at scammingscammers@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook under the page Scamming Scammers Action. Share with us your story, your encounter. If you have any pictures or anything that can go with the story, any information, we'll look up and verify, and then we'll narrate your story into a video. Thanks for listening, and until next time.